Microsoft AZ-801 exam practice questions with explanations are available in the video for you to study. You must prevent local administrators on Windows Server 2022 systems from altering Windows Defender firewall configurations. Which solution best meets this requirement? A. Configure an Azure firewall policy. B. Apply a group policy that enforces firewall settings. C. Enable adaptive network hardening in Microsoft Defender for Cloud. D. Deploy a network security group, NSG, in Azure. The answer is A. Group policy objects, GPOs, can centrally enforce Windows Defender firewall settings and prevent modification by local admins. Azure-level controls, like NSGs or Azure Firewall, operate at the network layer, not the OS level. Adaptive hardening only suggests recommendations, not enforcement. You are deploying Microsoft Sentinel to monitor insecure authentication protocols used by domain controllers. Which connector should you configure? A. Microsoft Defender for Cloud. B. Microsoft Defender for Identity. C. Threat Intelligence, TAXII. D. Azure Active Directory. The answer is B. Microsoft Defender for Identity integrates with domain controllers to detect NTLMV1, LDAP binds, and other insecure protocols. It feeds data into Microsoft Sentinel for centralized correlation. Other connectors, like Azure AD or TAXII, do not monitor domain controller traffic directly. A company plans to encrypt all clustered data volumes using BitLocker. Which action must you perform before enabling BitLocker on cluster shared volumes, CSVs? A. Disable failover clustering temporarily. B. Add the cluster name object, CNO, to the TPM owner list. C. Run the Enable BitLocker CMD-let directly on each node. D. Configure BitLocker to use the cluster service account. The answer is B. The cluster name object, CNO, must be granted TPM access to store encryption keys securely. Without this, BitLocker cannot be enabled on cluster shared volumes in a failover cluster. You are preparing to migrate DHCP services from DHCP1 to DHCP2. Which pair of PowerShell CMD-lets should you execute? A. Export DHCP server on DHCP1 and import DHCP server on DHCP2. B. Backup DHCP server on DHCP1 and restore DHCP server on DHCP2. C. Get DHCP server v4 scope on DHCP1 and add DHCP server v4 scope on DHCP2. D. Copy item on both servers to replicate configuration files. The answer is A. The export DHCP server and import DHCP server CMD lets enable full DHCP migration, including scopes, leases, and reservations. Backup, restore is for recovery on the same host, not cross-server transfer. You are migrating a shared folder named FileServer1 data to a new Windows Server 2022 host. Which built-in Windows Server tool provides the simplest migration while preserving permissions and paths? A. Storage Migration Service. B. Windows Server Migration Tools. C. Robocopy with MIR. D. File Server Resource Manager, FSRM. The answer is A. Storage Migration Service automates migration of shares, ACLs, and permissions, while maintaining the same UNC paths post-move. Robocopy can copy data but doesn't preserve server identity or configuration metadata. You need to migrate a web application hosted on IIS to Azure App Service while keeping the same DNS name. What should you configure? A. Add a custom domain and update DNSA record. B. Create an HTTP 301 redirect rule in IIS. C. Use Azure Front Door with a CNAME to the default web app URL. D. Enable Azure CDN caching. The answer is A. App Service allows you to assign a custom domain to maintain your public host name. After binding the domain, update your DNS record to point to the Azure Web Apps IP. Redirects and CDNs do not replace domain binding. You plan to replicate Hyper-V virtual machines from an on-premises cluster to Azure. Before migration, what should you configure? A. Deploy Azure Site Recovery Provider on the Hyper-V hosts. B. Install the Azure Connected Machine Agent. C. Enable BitLocker encryption on all VMs. D. Add each VM to a separate availability set. The answer is A. Azure Site Recovery requires the site recovery provider on the Hyper-V host to handle replication orchestration. The Connected Machine Agent is for Azure Arc, not for VM replication. You are migrating an application's virtual machines from an on-premises cluster to a new Windows Server 2022 failover cluster. Which type of storage should you configure for VM files to meet clustering best practices? A. NTFS volume per node. B. Cluster shared volume, CSV. C. Refs non-clustered disk. DISCSI target storage. The answer is B. Cluster shared volumes, CSVs. Enable all nodes in a failover cluster to simultaneously access shared storage, ensuring continuous availability for virtual machines. Your organization must ensure only approved applications run on all domain-joined servers. Which technology provides centralized enforcement of this policy? A. Windows Defender Application Control, WDAC. B. Smart Screen Reputation-Based Protection. C. Controlled Folder Access. D. Exploit Guard Attack Surface Reduction. The answer is A. WDAC allows admins to define trusted code signing policies, effectively enforcing an application allolist. It operates at the kernel level and integrates with Group Policy or Intune for centralized management. You must automatically shut down an Azure virtual machine when Microsoft Defender for Cloud reports an anti-malware disabled alert. Which component can perform this automated response? A. Azure Logic App connected to the alert. B. Azure Policy Assignment. C. Azure Monitor Workbook. D. Security Center Adaptive Hardening. The answer is A. Logic apps can automate remediation actions based on Defender for cloud alerts. By linking an alert rule to a logic app, you can trigger workflows such as shutting down non-compliant VMs,